Hey fellow tubers, uh, just thought I'd share with you a couple of things. First off, I'm going to be thought I'd share throwing together a uh, turkey carcass to become chicken or turkey stock. It's actually quite easy. I'm not going to show you how to, I'm just going to show you how easy it is to do it. Um, and the noise you'll hear in the background is my dryer. It's running. But I wanted to share with you something else. In a video that I posted where I shared my kitchen and I was talking about possibly moving the refrigerator down, well, I did so yesterday. I think I'm going to like it a whole lot better because, for one thing, when I do have to crack the door for broiling anything, I can't get into the refrigerator without closing the door first. So, yeah, I moved it down and then moved the garbage cans over. I think that's going to work out quite well. So as you can see, I do make changes to my kitchen when I feel it is necessary. And if it means just swapping things around, that's what happens. Anyhow, it's just all part of what you do when you're fine-tuning your kitchen as you go along and you realize something isn't quite working right. Just take a few minutes, change it out, swap it around, adjust, whatever, and move on. So, anyhow, as the old saying goes, nothing's ever really finished in your house. You're always making improvements to something, repainting something, whatever the case may be. So, anyway, I'm going to show you the turkey carcass. I was given this yesterday when my middle sister came by to drop off not only the turkey carcass, but some of the meat and a care gift or care package of a bunch of foodstuffs. Some of it came from Harriet and David. The rest she picked up at the store. So last night's dinner became stuff from the basket and some of the turkey. So anyway, we were talking about this sort of thing, and that's how I got the turkey. So I'm going to be cutting it into pieces so I can actually fit it into my stock pot. So anyway, here we go. This is a still from Chef Frank on his channel Proto Cooks, where he made a video on making chicken stock last June, and he made 2 points that are good to follow. One I didn't know about, the other one not as clear on. First, stock is meat plus bones. It's thicker in body and has no seasoning generally. Broth is meat only and is thinner in body and is seasoned. Think chicken soup, plus the meat is meant to be eaten. Reality is, both can be used interchangeably in most dishes without issue. Secondly, make your stock broth without the lid. It will not only reduce as it cooks, but it will reduce the rolling boil, even when the burner is set to 1 or 2. This will reduce the agitation of any sediment, bones, marrow, etc. that is in the bones, and it will cause the stock to be cloudy, not clear. I've heard that roasting the bones meat will darken the color, especially for poultry-based broth stock. Now, if already cooked and you are now extracting the flavor for stock, additional roasting may not be necessary, unless you need to break it up to fit your pot, and it's at least partially frozen. Then roasting for 25-30 minutes will make it easier to break apart if a whole carcass. Otherwise, use something larger than an 8-quart stock pot instead, and you'll want enough room for the carcass bones and the aromatics and the water to cover with room left over ideally. Here on the counter are all the pieces necessary for the aromatics that are used to make the stock. It's just a couple of carrots, a couple of celeries, 2 yellow onions. I'm not going to roast these as much as I'm going to get the meat roasted in the oven, or at least until it starts to roast. Then I'll drop it all into the pot with this, and then we'll boil it down. that is the size of a turkey. I'm going to be whacking it into pieces so I can fit it into my pot. See, there's the pot. Meat cleaver. One of my favorite pieces in the kitchen, by the way, is this cleaver. It's heavy enough that I can use it to break meat, and I've also got a boning knife which I will use as well for some of the smaller items. Ooh, it's an IGA bag. My big breadboard. And throw on some gloves. Two, yep. Natural gloves are perfect for dealing with meat, especially raw meat, because you can put them on and then handle the meat and then pull them off and not have to worry about cross-contamination and washing your hands quite as often. That can be a real royal pain in the you-know-what. Let's see. And what I'm doing right now is just kind of pulling off some of the bigger pieces of meat that are still on here. And that's where the boning knife comes in. It's perfect for that. And I'm just tossing everything into the pot as I go. All right, this is the turkey as it is. What I'm going to do is pull out what's been stuffed in it and set it aside, because it's basically not really, it's meant to infuse flavor into the bird rather than be stuffing. So I can go in there. Actually, bowl. Got this out first. I didn't think about it. garbage bowl, as you can see. And they'll go into my can. In here. Which, if it ends up in the stock pot, that's not a big deal because I can strain it out. Now, while I'm waiting for the oven to preheat, but also for the carcass, I had to take a minute and clean up over there. Which basically means emptying the dishwasher, putting away the clean stuff that's in the drying basket, and it's all part of what I call clean as you go. Okay, one of the things I'm going to do while I'm waiting for the meat to roast in the oven, because I'm only doing it for 30 minutes, and I thought I got 15 minutes left. I thought I'd go ahead and get things ready so that once it comes out and I can put the bigger board down and start cutting. Idea is roasting the chicken will help make it a little easier to maybe cut and break the bones down so I can fit it into my stock pot. Because this is what I've got to work with. Not a real huge pot. It's only 8 quarts. So anyhow, as soon as if I can get this big ass carcass cut into pieces, I'll get it in and get everything else ready to go. But in the meantime, it's no reason why I can't go ahead and chop up the aromatics and get them in the pot, because aromatics, which are celery, carrot, and an onion or two. These are just good old basic yellow onions. Nothing really fancy about it. Don't need to do anything really to it. They're just going to give up their life in the pot while they're cooking for hours. And since it's after 2 now, and it's going to be closer to 2:30 by the time the carcass comes out, I'll get it going and then turn off the heat sometime this evening, let it cool down some, and then I'll throw it in the refrigerator and we'll finish it up tomorrow. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and get things chopped, ready to go. One thing I should mention real quick is, because they're going to be giving up their flavor, you don't need to chop them real big or chop them fine or even skin them. You're just going to be putting them into the pot so that in the end you'll strain them. That's all you're really doing. Oh, I will wash these real quick. These are even pretty carrots. This is really about all you want, size-wise. Because like I said, you're going to be straining them out after the fact. Just cutting these into quarters. And there we go. All right. Now I'm going to get that, bring it over here, and see if I can get this thing to whack. Enough. So that I can break it apart to get it in there. That's getting pretty full now that I've got the aromatics in, but you know how it is. Let's see. Oh, wait. Oh, that's crumbling. And beauty of why my nose is itching, but it is itching. Neck. That. Just pretend you didn't see it. See, that can all be like so. Now I'm filling it with water. Go ahead and turn on to about high. Get it bubbling, and then I'll turn it down. That, just turning off the stove, is what you can see in there is that's how far up the water is in the pot. That'll make a good fair amount of stock to start with, but we're going to also be reducing. The idea of this is stock is about extraction. You think stock is important or is complex and difficult to do. It's about time. It takes forever to make stock. In that you get ideally this should have been going about 9 o'clock this morning, but I didn't have the aromatics until a little later. The point is, you put your bones, any meat, anything into the pot, and then you cook it for 6, 7, 8 hours, particularly for things like beef stock, chicken stock, and turkey stock. And the reason for that is because of the type of meat they are. For things like seafood stocks, shrimp stock, crab stock, anything of that nature, you can do that in a lot less time because they really don't need a whole lot. And I'll show how to do that when I get to that point. But this is going to take a while, and it's called extracting the flavor from the bones as well as from the meat. Everything will be given up, and you'll be discarding all that. And that is going to be your stock when it gets done. So I'm going to take these and see if I can get as much of that into here, and then I'm going to make a bouquet garni. And then that is really nothing more than peppercorns, bay leaf or two, some thyme, and some rosemary, and some oregano. That's pretty much it. And it'll just be put in a little tea diffuser thingy, and I'll just let it sit in here for as long as it takes to cook down the sauce, or the stock. Now we're going to do, this is what is known as a diffuser. Is a tea diffuser, so if you've got tea leaves, you can put them in here, and then put that in your hot boiling water, and you can diffuse your tea for a big batch of tea, for like a teapot or something. But what I do is I use it for the bouquet garni. Although you can also use cheesecloths for this, but I don't keep disposable cheesecloth on hand. So 2 or 3 bay leaves, just like that. About that many peppercorns, whole peppercorns. It'll impart its flavor. It won't be, because it's all going to get tossed out in the end anyway, so it's more for flavor than it is anything else. Some oregano, about a tablespoon. That. And a good healthy pinch of rosemary. This rosemary, by the way, comes from my bush out in the backyard. And some store-bought bulk thyme, as you can see. About maybe half a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons, somewhere in there. And you close this up. Oh, come on. There we go. And now it will go in here. I'll just kind of push it down, like so. And as it cooks, it'll get pushed even further down into the pot. There. But that It's like I said, it's going to extract flavor. It's going to extract a lot of flavor. And I should probably, at this point, not going to worry too much about salt, because that will come a little bit later. There's probably salt already on the bird, but we'll taste it as it starts coming along and add salt as we need to. Because right now it's basically hands off once I put the lid on it. So, and like I said, it's extraction of flavor, and extraction takes time. Let's see, it's now, what, 2:45. At about 8-ish, I'll probably turn the heat off and let it cool down for about an hour or so and before I stick it in the fridge. Now that you see the lid's on, like I said, it's going to be hands off until time. Other than periodically checking it and tasting it as we go along. One thing I forgot to mention, I'm going to be starting this on high to get the water boiling. Once it starts to come to a boil, I'll turn it down. And you just want this to sit there and burble barely, if you can get it to do so, for hours and hours. It'll slowly extract its flavor as it does so. See that? That's the pot coming to a boil. I've already turned the heat down to about 2. On my stove, because it's an infrared glass top electric stove, they tend to cook a little more than a cow rod, in that a 7 is closer to an 8 and 2 is still slightly rapid boil. I might have to turn it down to a 1, but you want this to just barely bubble or burble for a while once it calms down. And the reason for that is you don't want to stir up the sediment any more than you can help, because that'll make for a much clearer stock. It is now 4:32 p.m. and thought I would share with you how things are looking in the pot. This is really what you want. It's just a very, very gentle burble of water coming up from below as it cooks. As you can see right here, the onion is cooking and it's starting to soften and turn translucent, and the carrots are softening up. See, I can already, as you can see, I can already poke it. But I haven't even been at the pot, just occasionally checking. Maybe added some salt about 15 minutes ago and tasted. And I could just start to taste a little bit of the flavoring that's coming from within. But that's basically how you cook stock, is you just let it sit there for several hours until it starts to take on a taste. It's about 7 o'clock when I began this, turned off the burner, and then started scooping out that using tongs, and then a strainer, which is basically this sort of teal colored strainer. Now what I'm doing is straining and sifting out all of the bits and pieces into what will become hopefully clear stock. Tomorrow I will put it in the refrigerator once it's been cooled. Then I will tomorrow pull it out and I'll skim off the fat. And it should be clear at that point, or fairly clear. Anyway, that's what you do when it comes to stock. And I'll show you tomorrow, hopefully, the finished product. Just in case you're curious, I'm going to take that out and put it into my yard waste bin so that it'll go to the compost and be made into mulch, compost, whatever, ground cover, whatever it's going. Actually, it's going to become, well, yeah, it'll go to the city parks, but it won't go to waste. Yes, I know this is a mess, but the stock has been transferred and it's in here. Looks cloudy now, but by morning when I get ready to skim the fat off, it should be a lot clearer. Meanwhile, the stock pot's empty, stuff is in the sink, and I'll start loading it all in the dishwasher. This is the strained turkey stock as it's cooled. It's not completely cool, but I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on it and put it in the dishwasher, or in the refrigerator, and in the morning I'll skim it for the fat. The fat will rise to the surface and I can take a spoon and skim it. Then it should be ready to go from there. Good morning. It is the next morning and I'm going to pull the stock out of the refrigerator and I'll start skimming, and I'll show you what I mean by skimming the fat off. That yellow stuff on top should be the fat. Yep. Now I'm skimming off this fat, which should be under it is the jiggly jelly stock. See how jiggly that is? That's the marrow and other aspects of the stock, the bones that are in the chicken, and you get this with meat or dark meats like beef as well. So as a result of that, that's what it does, and when it cools, it solidifies and turns into what's basically gelatin. So as this heats up, it'll become liquid, and hopefully it'll be clearer than it's been. Another tip Chef Frank mentions is in the same video is to ice down your stock as quickly as possible. This will reduce the time it stays in the unsafe zone. Food items have a window of 2 hours once cooked until it becomes unsafe to eat, or vice versa when out of the fridge as well. This is part and parcel to safe food handling. To do this, just add 2 bags of ice to your sink and add enough water to the top of the stock in a stainless steel pot or a little more. This will allow for quick heat transfer to the ice bath while you move the pot around in the cold water, stirring occasionally to help it cool down. Just want to show you here, in the freezer is the fat that I had skimmed off. I'm going to freeze it, or at least partially, so that it doesn't make a huge mess, and then I'll go toss it in the garbage. And that's really the preferred way to do it, so that you don't pour grease down your sink. That's where most of your plumbing problems come from, is when you pour grease down the sink, it'll solidify and then you end up with draining problems. I just checked this before I turned the camera back on. Definitely dropped down, but that's where it is now and that's where I'm going to leave it, and I've got the heat turned off. It is very tasty. I've only had to put a good pinch of salt in it yesterday, and it turned out to be just exactly what it needed, because there was probably salt in the meat itself. So I'm going to let this cool down a little bit, and then I'll get out the ice cube trays and we'll divvy it up, and I'll get it ready for the freezer. Okay. These are what I'm talking about. Each one of these is going to be about a tablespoon of chicken stock, or turkey stock in this case. So if you need two, you just pop two out of the refrigerator. Now what I'm going to be doing is, once these freeze, I'll be breaking them into storage container with dated and, with the date on it, labeled and dated is what I'm trying to say. And then all I need is grab a couple of them if I need 2 tablespoons, 3 if I need 3, and throw it in the pot or into a measuring cup and thaw in the microwave, depending on what I'm doing. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. Actually, let's pull this over just a little bit. And I'll get a tray. The reason I'm putting a tray down is so that if anything spills, it will spill in the tray and not all over my stove. Now let those freeze up enough, and then I'll put them into a container and I'll freeze the rest. Because it might take at least 3 trays, if not all 4. So if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button, and if you want to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified. It'll do this channel a world of good, and I'll see you on the next one.